back to our channel. In today's video I'm going to be talking about my labor and delivery story with Evelyn. This is actually my second time recording this video because I tried to record it earlier today while Mason was at work, but that did not go very well while trying to watch Evelyn at the same time and make sure she wasn't getting into anything that she wasn't supposed to. Sorry if I look at my phone. I wrote points out that I wanted to make sure that I talked about, just so I don't forget anything. Obviously, I'm 10 months out past when I delivered her and when I experienced this. Obviously, I wish I had recorded this video when I actually had her 10 months ago, but we're just doing it now. I feel like I remember everything, so I think it's gonna be fine, but anyways, let's just get on into it. So the story starts on September 27th on a Friday. I kind of had contractions on and off through this day. They were kind of like ranging from like being like 20 minutes to 15 minutes, sometimes 10 minutes apart. They weren't super intense, but I definitely noticed them. I mean, it didn't really make me feel like I didn't really think that I was in labor at this point, because on the days previously I was having these Braxton Hicks contractions and they would progress, but then I would take a shower, take a bath, and they would just dissipate, or I would go to sleep and they would not return. So I wasn't holding hope out that I was in labor. Mind you, my actual due date was on September 24th and this was 3 days past that due date already. So I just kind of felt like I've been having these Braxton Hicks contractions all these days leading up, and I just didn't want to be like, have hope that, oh, I'm in labor now. So they just kind of continued all day. They never really went away, but they never really got closer throughout the day until the evening time. At night, it was a Friday night, and we decided that we would go to trivia at a local restaurant. Me and my family sometimes would go to this, so we just thought that it would be a good idea to go to try and get my mind off of these contractions, because at this point I still didn't know if they were real or not. So we went and they kept getting closer and closer, and at this point it was like 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and starting to get more intense, which I don't know if trivia was the best place to go while in labor or potential labor, because obviously you're not allowed to bring out your phone, and I was using my phone to track like how long my contractions were and the distance between the contractions, and I obviously wasn't able to do that because if you bring out your phone then it looks like you're cheating. And yeah, so maybe not the best place, but it definitely got my mind off of it until about 10 o'clock, which these things usually last about 3 hours, usually until 11 is when they announce the winner. But me and Mason decided that we would leave at 10 o'clock because I was just really uncomfortable at this point, and they were pretty close together because we were using like how many songs they were between each one, and there were about 2 songs in between, I remember, between each contraction. So we just decided we would go home. I would try to take a shower, try to go to bed, just in case this was real labor, because I obviously needed to get some sleep if it was, while I still could. So we got home and I was still pretty uncomfortable, and I took a shower and they didn't go away, so I was starting to gain some hope that this was really it. So yeah, and then after that I got in like my PJs. I tried bouncing on the ball to try and increase it, and at this point they were about like 5-6 minutes apart, but I was just like, I'm just gonna try, like, let's just try to go to bed, let's try to get some rest. So but obviously we were super excited and uncomfortable, so I really couldn't sleep that well. Sorry if there's background noise. Ev is taking her bath right now with Mason so that he can distract her a little bit, so sorry if you can hear her. She's having fun. She likes the bath time. Yeah, so we tried to go to bed, but I really couldn't sleep at all. I was so uncomfortable. 2 a.m. On the 28th now, on September 28th now, because we made it to the next morning. Well, 2 a.m. They were about like 4 to 5 minutes apart, and they were lasting about a minute. So I got Mason up and I was like, I want to go to the hospital now. just to get checked out. I didn't actually think that I would be admitted, because I don't know, I just heard that like if you're in true labor, then you'll know when it's time to go to the hospital, and I just didn't really, I felt iffy about it. I didn't think that I was at the point yet to go to the hospital, but I was also really uncomfortable, so I decided that I wanted to go. And obviously my family was super excited too. They were waiting, they wanted this to be it. So my Mason went and got my parents up because I wanted my mom to come with me, because Mason and her were the ones that I wanted to have in the room while I was delivering the baby. I didn't care who would come in, but I just wanted my mom to be there obviously throughout the whole thing. So Mason, my mom, and I all got into our car and went to the hospital. And actually my sister, her boyfriend, and my dad were super excited, and they actually got into another car and went to the hospital as well, which I told them I really didn't think this would be it, but they just wanted to be there just in case, so they're super supportive. Yeah, so we got to the hospital, I got checked in, they took me up to labor and delivery, and I was put on the monitor to be watched for 30 minutes about my contractions. And they checked me, and I was only like half centimeter or 1, so not very far, which sucked because I've been in pain for a while now. And so they put me on the monitors, they were watching, and after 30 minutes they said that I wasn't at the point yet to be admitted, but they did feel like I was going to be progressing to like real labor probably the next day or two. So they said I could either try to walk around for 2 hours and see if that helped kickstart anything more, or I could just go home. And at this point I was super disappointed and tired and in pain, and I just was like, I just want to go home and see if I can rest this off. So everybody packed up and we went home. And as soon as we got home, I went to go sit in bed, and my water broke. And I was like, yes, they can't send me home now. This is it. And at that point, everything really sunk in that I'm going to go have a baby now. Like, I will be admitted to the hospital, and I will be having this baby in the next day or so. And it was just such a surreal, like, feeling of just relief, because at this point I was now 4 days past my due date. I was so big and so uncomfortable, and yeah, I was ready. So Mason then went and grabbed my parents, because they had yet to even really, they were just still getting ready, they were getting ready for bed too, because everybody just got home. And my mom came rushing back, and at this point I made it into the bathroom, and I was just like sitting on the toilet as all this all this fluid was leaking out of me. And my mom's like, come on, let's go back to the hospital now. And I was like, okay, well, let me call them just to let them know I'm coming back, because I felt weird, I don't know. So, and I wanted to take a shower. I wanted to rinse off the amniotic fluid off my legs, which I don't know why, because it continued to leak in the car on the way there. But I did anyway, and they said, and I explained what happened to them once I called, and they said it sounded like my water broke too, which I knew if my water broke, because it just felt like this big like pop and then this warm gush of fluid out. And I mean, it was a big pile like of fluid. So we packed up all in the car again, but this time my dad, my sister, and her boyfriend stayed home because they were super exhausted as well. I mean, it was Friday, they all worked that day, so they stayed home until the next morning. And me, my mom, and Mason went to the hospital, and we got checked in, and they tested to make sure that it actually was my fluid, and we were admitted. And I was admitted around 4 a.m. On the 28th, and they checked me again at this point, and I was only 1 centimeter dilated still. Super disappointed because my water had broken. The contractions increased tremendously once that my water had broken, and I was in a lot more pain now than what I was before, and it had just been a long time already of labor. of what felt like labor, and I wasn't really progressing. So I labored like that until about 10 a.m. and that's when the doctor came in and checked me again, and I was only 2 centimeters dilated. So within that 6 hours I only increased by 1 centimeter. So the doctor had the discussion like, well, we'll check again in an hour, and if you haven't made any progress within the hour, then we're gonna start you on Pitocin, which I was fine with because I wanted this labor to increase, because the doctor also explained that because my water had broken, the baby needed to come within 24 hours of my water breaking, because after your water breaks, your sac has been like basically broken, so bacteria from the outside world can enter and cause issues possibly. So, which I understood the importance of starting Pitocin. So I was like, okay. So then they came back in at 11 and I hadn't progressed, so I was started on Pitocin, which really decreased the amount of time between my contractions, and they were coming every like 2 to 3 minutes, but intense, and it maybe increased the intensity by a little bit, but I mean, I don't remember how much they increased it. So they kept having to amp up the Pitocin level, and I wasn't really progressing very much, because they checked me again at 1 p.m. and I was only at 4, but I did progress 2 centimeters in that couple hours, but still not a lot. To kind of, this is just something I remember, to pass the time, because at this point my dad was in the room also, so it was my dad, mom, and Mason and me all in the room, and I remember that we downloaded this Texas Hold'em app on our phones, and we were playing Texas Hold'em to try and help pass the time, to try and get mind off the pain, you know, so that we're not just sitting there in silence waiting and hoping that things would change. To continue, at 3 p.m. is when I asked for the epidural, because at this point I was super exhausted. I hadn't slept that whole night, I hadn't really gotten that much rest, and I was in a lot of pain. So then at about 4:15ish is when I got my epidural administered, and I felt really good. The only downfall was that as soon as I got it administered and got laid back down in bed, my blood pressure dropped extremely low and I passed out for a couple minutes, and the nurse ran in and had to give me medicine to bring my blood pressure back up, and then I was throwing up because of that medicine, and I accidentally threw up on the nurse's shirt and I felt awful. I just remember crying about that, and the nurse just being like, it's fine, like it's completely fine, and I just remember that. And but honestly, getting the epidural was a lifesaver. I totally recommend it. It made me feel so good, and the lady that administered my epidural did a fantastic job. I mean, I feel like I've had flu shots worse than what I felt during the epidural. I mean, I was also in a lot of pain from contractions, so I mean, I don't know if that necessarily makes a difference, but I honestly, it wasn't as bad as I thought, and I was so nervous for the epidural. Like, I almost wanted a natural birth just so I didn't have to get the epidural. But complete godsend. I loved it, and I will be getting an epidural for any future births that I possibly have. So that was around 4, and then I think I just like knocked out and fell asleep. But then at around 5:15, I remember like waking up and feeling like I had to poop really bad. Like I needed to go to the bathroom bad, and I told my dad to go get the nurse because I was hooked up obviously to the epidural and to the IV and all that, so I needed help trying to get to the bathroom, and I didn't know if I could necessarily walk while having the epidural also. So he went and got the nurse, and the nurse came in and she's like, well, let me just check you to make sure, because sometimes being fully dilated feels like you need to poop. So she checked me, and lo and behold, I had made it to 10 centimeters. So within that like 2-hour time span, I went from 4 or 5 centimeters all the way to 10. And the nurse explained it as being like, once my body got the epidural, it was finally able to relax and expand to allow the baby to allow my cervix to dilate, and for the baby to move down the birth canal and become effaced, or I think is the term, which I should have gotten that epidural a lot sooner, but it was fine. So she's like, and so the doctor came in and rechecked just to make sure, and she's like, yep, you're 10 centimeters, you're ready to go. But she's like, but since you're not, and like you're not super uncomfortable and you're not feeling like a super big urge to push, how about you just sit there, relax, and have her move herself, like have gravity help move the baby through the birth canal, so so you can like conserve some energy. And I was like, okay. I was thinking I was gonna sit there for maybe 15-30 minutes, but nope. I sat there for like 45 until about 6 o'clock, and then at 6 o'clock the nurse came in and was like, can you do a practice push? And I did a practice push, and she's like, hold on, like the baby is right there, let me go get the doctor. So she went and got the doctor, and I pushed for the 10 to 15 minutes, and at 6:15 I've made her presence into the world at 6 pounds 4.5 ounces and 19 inches long. As soon as she entered, she pooped on me, and then they put her on my chest, and I was able to breastfeed her and use skin to skin for the next 2 hours. And then after that 2 hours of bonding, they then took her to be weighed and like do all the tests or whatever that they have to do, measure her, and then they brought her back. And at this hospital they did do delayed cord clamping. Like I think they left the cord, I don't know how long they left the cord, but I know that's what they said that they did. So yeah. And then also they don't give the baby bath until like 36 hours after the baby's been born, to allow all that white stuff on their skin to help sink in to their skin, because it's all beneficial for them, for the baby. So yeah. And then at 9 p.m. we were moved out of the delivery room to the room where we would be staying for the next 2 days. They have a mandatory, if you're a new parent you have to stay for 2 days, but if you're not a new parent, you don't have to stay for 1 day. But we were obviously first time parents. One thing though, they said that because I didn't push her very long, she had a lot of amniotic, well not a lot, but she had amniotic fluid in her lungs, and so like periods throughout like the next couple days, she would be like coughing up this fluid, and we'd have to use like the sucker to try and suck it out, because she's like couldn't breathe with it in there, which was really scary the first time it happened. And like we like rushed out to the nurse, and she's like, oh no, it's fine, and like explained everything, which I mean I wish we were able to explain that earlier, because so that we could identify it when it happened instead of freaking out the first time that it happened. But it was honestly fine after that. We knew what to expect. But yeah. And then that first night she did pretty good. She like, we woke up obviously every 2 hours to feed, but she honestly slept most of the time, which obviously she's a newborn, she sleeps. But and then that next day we had a lot of visitors, and the lactation consultant came, and we were getting help with like breastfeeding, which was honestly really helpful. I love Nancy. She was so sweet, very hands-on, but she knew what she was doing, and it helped honestly a lot how she explained it. And a lot of visitors, and yeah. And then that next night, that Monday night was awful. She was cluster feeding like crazy. Like she fed almost that whole night. I was exhausted, which I mean they have to cluster feed to help get your milk to come in, but it was like honestly the whole night long she was cluster feeding. And the hospital really emphasized not to use a pacifier because they said that it could hinder her like breastfeeding, her latch for breastfeeding. So we didn't, but I regret that because I mean she's used a pacifier now since, I mean, honestly like a week old, and she's not had an issue with her latch this whole time. So, and she's used a pacifier interchangeably. She loves a pacifier. But yeah, and then on Tuesday morning, Tuesday like 11ish, we finally able to pack up and get the heck out of there. And I was ready to leave. I mean, those rooms were so tiny, and I mean, not that you need a lot of space, but when we had visitors it was very cramped, and honestly I just wanted to get home, get in our own space where we had our own stuff, and take a shower in my own shower, and yeah. And then I guess I'll go into a little bit about postpartum. By postpartum, I mean, I feel like I had a good postpartum. I didn't tear, I didn't rip or anything while I was pushing. I mean, I had a tiny baby. She was only 6 pounds 4.5 ounces. But yeah, I mean, I bled for the full 6 weeks, I believe, but it wasn't anything like awful. And then I mean, I also then got an IUD at 6 weeks, and that makes you bleed again. So I mean, I was bleeding, I bled for a very long time, but I haven't bled like since like 2 or 3 months postpartum now, so I guess 3-4 months. But I didn't have any issues, and I'm very thankful for that. I'm very thankful that I didn't have any issues during my pregnancy, during my labor and delivery, and during my postpartum. I was very, very lucky, and I'm very thankful for that. I'll try to insert some pictures now of when we had her, but I don't think I have very many pictures of when I was in labor, if at all. But I do have newborn pictures of Ev, and I'll insert them now because they're super cute. Alright, bye guys. Thank you for watching. If you can, like this video down below, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks. Bye.